Welcome to my channel. If you need to replace the wheel on your Deebot, then you've come to the right place. Check out this video and I'll show you what I did to replace the right side wheel on my Deebot. Now this is fairly simple compared to changing the main drive motor, which is on another one of my videos, so check that out if you need that. But just watch along and follow what I do. Pop out these plugs, and underneath there's two screws which you need to undo from this top part. They're connected to the bottom base, so I always do these two first. Don't worry about the two screws at the front of this unit, just these two back ones here is all you need. Next is this little quarter panel. If you pull on the edges, it's got little plastic tabs that just allow it to pop up. Now flip the Deebot over and remove the main brushes and the main rotating brush here out of the way. Now there's some screws which I'm pointing to now. Undo these, which are Phillips screws, and take off the bottom plate. Move the bottom plate up out of the way, and now we can get the battery out. So there's a weighted piece of metal here which holds the battery in place. It also helps balance the Deebot. Undo the two screws and get this out. You sometimes have to work from side to side to try and get this up out of the way. But once that's out, you can hold on to it, flip the Deebot over so the battery pops up, and then you can pull out the plug like I am doing now. Now that the battery's out, there's two screws underneath in that battery compartment. Undo those, and there's another 4 screws around the outer edge which you need to do. But first we'll take off the bumper. So all these little screws around the front edge of the bumper on this bottom retaining plate need to come out. There's a little retaining plate which once these screws are undone, you'll lift it out of the way and the bumper will be free to move up and out. So get the retaining plate out of the way, flip it over, and the bumper, as you can see, it's just sort of hooked over the edge of the housing there. Tilt it up so you can get access to the plugs. There's 3 to undo. Be very, very careful with these. Gently pull on these, but on the plug itself, and just work until you've got them out, but do not pull on the wires. And then take note of where they are so that you can know to put them back in the right spot again. Once it's out, you can move this out of the way and flip it back over. Now there's 6 screws. There's 2 screws inside the battery compartment and then another 4 on the outer edges. So I'm undoing these now. These are the main screws that hold the body together to the top. And once these are undone, we can get inside and have a look to see where the wheel is. Now those screws are undone, you can pull the top away from the base. It may take a wee bit of force, pry at the edges where I have, and it should pop up. Now lift it up out of the way and gently over towards the front so that you don't damage these plugs, and then pull out the 2 plugs that are connected the top part so that you can move the top out of the way. There we go. Alright, now we can see the wheel. All we need to do is get this plate off, which holds the little pump motor in place. So 2 screws, then get this plate out of the way, and I just sort of lift the motor up and to the side a little bit to give me access to the screw which is at the back of the wheel. Now we can see that screw. There's 4 screws holding down the drive motor housing, and what we want to do is make sure the cables that are running over the top of the housing are clear. There's a couple of little bits of tape which you need to peel off so you can get those wires up out of the way. Now that you got that out of the way, you can undo the 4 screws holding on the drive motor housing. Now you're probably also wondering, where can I get good quality aftermarket parts for my Deebot? Well, I'm just showing you a selection here which I've actually bought from AliExpress, and they work a treat. Here's an air freshener. It's brand new, fits perfectly, and the price is great. I also get my other parts like the drive motor here, or the main rotor brush, or just any of the accessories you can find, and I'll put a link in my description so you can buy some of the stuff yourself. And here we are, getting the other screws out of the drive motor housing. Now you want to hold a little bit of force down on the wheel because the wheel's spring loaded and it wants to pop the whole housing up out of the way, but you're not quite ready for that to happen yet. So I hold a little bit of force to get it together and then undo the screws, and then once the screws are undone I can let go and it will pop up out of the way. Right, screws are undone. Lift the whole housing up and out, but bear in mind it's still connected, so you just want to be careful that you don't damage any of these wires. If you have any problems later, it's probably because you've squished one of the wires or broken one of them. So yeah, be very careful. There's a couple of plugs holding this motor on, so gently work away at these and get them undone, and then you can pull the whole housing out of the way, ready for the new driving wheel motor. The plugs are undone. Now the housing comes apart. It's got 3 clips which you can gently pry up with a flathead screwdriver or something similar. The 2 parts of the housing come apart, and then there's a pin to hold the wheel that you purchase in place. You push the pin out and then you can swap it over. Just take note of where the wires and things run on this housing, because you're going to have to put the new ones back in the same location. So see, there's one of the clips, here's another one there and another one there. If you pop them up, the housing will come apart. And we're in. You can see there's a bit of a burnt type mark there on the motor. That's probably a good indication that there's something wrong with the wheel, which is why I'm replacing this wheel, because it was doing donuts and not going in a straight line. So that gave me an indication that the wheel was playing up. It also gave the warning that I needed to check the driving wheels regularly, yet they were clean, so I knew there was something up with the motor. Pull out the pin. This one was a bit tight. Some of them aren't this tight, so just work away at it until it comes out. Now that the pin's out, you can get the old wheel assembly out and get your new one. I've got a link in my description for you to buy your own, so just check that out. Now put it back into place, and then once it's up in there you can put that pin back through. Push it in. Sometimes needs a wee bit of persuasion. Be very careful doing this sort of thing. Now you can see it's moving. Time to put the top housing back on, but be careful because there's a sprung loaded arm here, so you need to kind of hold that a little bit and make sure that it's contacting on the little wheel piece of the wheel itself, so that the wheel always has positive pressure pushing down and popping it back out of the assembly. you might need to take a couple of goes at trying to get this right. See, I'm pushing up the little lever as I push it together. And then just do a simple test after you've got it together to make sure it's working properly. You don't want to go to the effort of putting it all back together to find out that the wheel's not spring loaded properly. There we go. Looks to be springing okay. Next, we get our finished assembly and get ready to put it back in. So what we're going to do is make sure all the cables run in the right location, and first of all I'll get these plugs and plug them back in. Now there are little lines and things on the plugs themselves, so you can sort of check out which way up they're supposed to go. It's obvious if you look at the plug and look at the socket, you should be able to see which way up to do them. Again, be very gentle with these. If you damage any of the wires, then something might not work with your Deebot. Same goes with anything inside this assembly here. Be very careful with motherboard components. You don't want to damage it. So yeah, if you're doing this, you're probably on an out of warranty repair anyway, so you're giving it a go to bring some life back to your Deebot rather than throwing it out. And I hope you find it helpful. And again, like if you do find value in this, then I'd really appreciate a like and a subscribe to my channel. It helps boost me and gives me motivation to get more videos like this created and onto the YouTube platform. So I thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Keep watching to see how I put it back together, and I'll do this in fast mode so that you can watch it going back together. But I really hope you enjoy the video. Otherwise, thanks guys, and make sure you run all the cables exactly where they were previously. If you have to, slow down the video of me pulling it apart to see where they go. This is very important when you go to put this piece back on, that everything's in the right place. You don't want to pinch the cables as you're putting it back together. And putting it back together is just the reverse of taking it apart. Just repeat your steps backwards. You're nearly there. Well done. I'm proud of you guys. I'd just like to mention here that when you put the bumper back on, be very careful plugging in the plugs and making sure they're all done up correctly. But also, the way this bumper sits is quite important as well. If it's not sitting quite right, then it might jam and you might lead to a bumper is stuck error. And it sits over top of the housing here. You need to make sure you lift the lid so that it's not jamming on the lid at all. Once it's free and you can test it, put it back into place and then put the retaining plate back and do up the screws to keep it in place. But yeah, test it, make sure that it's operating freely and from both sides. Another handy tip is to keep all your screws from one part in a certain area or group pile. Now you can get a little metallic pad or like a magnetic pad if you want to do this. I just make a little pile on my bench and make sure that they're clearly all together in one spot. That helps me immensely. Once you've got it all back together and the accessories on, here comes the moment of truth, where you turn it on and test it out. This is the nerve-wracking moment. Have I damaged it or have I fixed it? Here goes nothing. It's going. Yes! Off in a straight line. Success. Watch my other videos. I've got one on the left wheel. I've also got the main roller drive motor replacement and a heap of other great content on my channel. So subscribe. Thank you. Cheers.